Thank you, Richard. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So I'm going to talk today. We're going to talk about legal issues that individuals or entrepreneurs or even business owners face during their journey in the marketplace. So one thing I wanted to talk is how do people structure a proper let's say a partnership uh, when they're starting a company to make sure like everything is in order.
Sure. Well, it all depends on what your goals and desires are and what your background is and what your circumstances are. So it's subjective, meaning that it depends on the circumstances for each person. So what I do is when I help new business people or entrepreneurs start a company, I work with an accountant or their accountant, and I work with them and they work with me, and we figure out what's the best business organization for them based on their circumstances and their goals. It's either going to be like a corporation, it's going to be an LLC, it's going to be a partnership, it's going to be a limited partnership, it's going to be a sole proprietorship. It just depends on what the circumstances are, but those are all the available avenues to them.
Okay, so let's say it's a corporation that they're forming, and there's a death that happens. What happens, or how can they prevent uh, any uh, any uh, any problems?
Sure. So when you start a business organization, you need to have two things in place. One, before you start anything or do anything, you have to have a written business plan that talks about your business, what it's going to be, who's going to be in it, your goals, how you're going to make money, how you're going to spend money, if you're going to rent a space. It's basically the roadmap of your entire business. So that's one thing you have to have. The other is when you form your business organization, depending on what you form, you have to have governing documents. So for a corporation, you have to have corporate bylaws and articles of incorporation. For an LLC, you have to have an operating agreement. For a partnership, you have to have a partnership agreement. And then ideally, in those agreements, you will have the roadmap of how things operate in your business organization and who does what, when, where, why, how. And that will tell you what to do in issues like death of a member, death of a partner, death of a shareholder, when they want to disassociate, how you buy someone out, etc. It's all in the documents. If it's not in the documents, then it depends on the state you're located in. I'm in Florida, for instance, so we would have to revert to Florida statutes to figure out how to remedy the situation of the death of a business member. But if you put it all in your governing documents, then it'll tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. So make sure it's in your governing documents.
Do you have a situation in mind that went wrong that you could talk about so it could help someone?
Do I have a specific situation in mind?
Yeah, like something in like that happened in the past, like you were dealing with
Sure.
what you were in.
Sure. I represented uh, a wife whose husband was in an LLC with another business member, and they didn't have governing documents that says what happens, and the husband died. So then the wife was left with the 50% ownership of the LLC, and the wife didn't want to have anything to do with the LLC. The wife didn't really like the other owner. So instead of us just having a document that said exactly what to do and how to do it, we had to go through litigation, which was timely and costly until we finally settled the case. But that whole case could have been avoided if it was just in the document to begin with.
Can anyone sue somebody if they have no money?
Anyone can sue anywhere at any time for anything. There's no restriction that prevents you from filing a lawsuit against someone or something, whether it's meritorious, that's another question. But you can file, there's no restriction on you filing a lawsuit against whoever you want for whatever you want. Obviously, there's consequences if you do it, and that's addressed in the court system. But yeah, you can file a lawsuit against anyone you want for anything you want.
No, the reason I'm saying that is because it's costly. That's why. So if the person doesn't have the funds for the lawyer and all that, so is there a way that they could structure something and deal with the lawyer? And that's why I'm asking that question.
Sure. So, for instance, here in Florida, if you're a business organization, you're not allowed to represent yourself in court. You have to have an attorney. Other jurisdictions allow you to represent yourself, and others are like Florida, where you have to have an attorney to represent you. So obviously, if money is tight or money is an issue, you want to seek out the counsel of your attorney to find out what the best plan is to remedy your situation in a cost-effective manner. Maybe it's finding an attorney who does business litigation on a contingency fee basis, so that way you don't pay anything unless you recover. Maybe it's having a payment plan with the attorney, or maybe there's like piecemeal litigation where the attorney will help you do certain things at certain points in the litigation for a per appearance or for a per occurrence fee. So that's how you would address that situation.
And it's different in every state, right?
Yes, it's every state is totally different from the other state. There's no two states that are alike. They're similar, but they're not 100% alike.
And another situation, when people are doing their taxes or an entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever, and they're on a high level, like financially, and they're giving the responsibility to their accountant to take care of it, but the accountant doesn't take care of it and steals the money or something like that. How could someone prevent that from happening? Because I see that a lot are happening with high level, high net worth people.
You're talking about like accounting fraud?
No, they're not. It's not accounting for. They're just not paying the
Oh,
what if the entrepreneur owed something, but they're not paying the bill for the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur thinks that the bill is paid, and then something happens years later that they say the government comes back to them and saying that, well, you didn't pay your stuff, so you know.
well, that's why one of the biggest things is if you're in business, you have to have a cadre of professionals around you who help you do things with the business. So you have a attorney who's your legal advisor, you have an accountant who's your financial compliance advisor, you have a banker who is your banking authority. So you need to have 100% complete honesty with them because they work for you and they're there to help you. So you can't get away with not paying taxes or trying to dummy up where
I'm,
money's going and how it's going.
yeah,
So,
I'm not saying that the person, the entrepreneur, did it on purpose. I'm saying the accountant did it on purpose.
okay. All right. So, all right. So, again, that's why you want to have a trusted cadre of people to do whatever. So, for your accountant, if you don't have your own accountant who you trust, you need to find an accountant who you trust. So, ask your other trusted professionals, your attorney, your banker, whatever, for like a one on one referral of someone who they know is trustworthy and has a track record, and then you can avoid issues like that. If you are exposed to an issue where the accountant, let's say whether negligently, which means they did it by accident, or intentionally screwed up your tax returns, you can essentially hire like a tax lawyer whose whole job is that they deal with the IRS to go and remedy the situation and then go possibly sue the accountant for like professional malpractice afterwards while you go finish your obligations and tie up your loose ends with the IRS.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was referring to. So let's say you want to give equity uh, to your employees. Let's say you have a few employees and you have built your business to a certain level and you want to give equity. What should the person, the entrepreneur, have to pay attention to?
Well, it goes back to your governing documents. You want to make sure that you have provision in your governing documents of how you can give away stock or membership certificates in an LLC or partnership interests in a partnership. And then you want to make sure with your employees you have an employment contract that specifies exactly what the relationship is between the employer and the employee, who does what, who does where, how you get paid, if you have a grievance, how to deal with that. And then also in there, you have dealing with issues of possible bonuses, equity, and things like that, and have all that addressed in writing and have that all addressed ahead of time so that when it happens, there's no doubt as to how it happens, how you do it, and how it's concluded. So that's how I would address the issue of giving an employee equity or doing something like that, is to have it planned well in advance.
How does someone get out of a bad contract?
Well, you first of all don't get into a bad contract. So that's why if you have an attorney or an accountant, you have your legal or your financial professionals help you out and review your contracts before you enter into them to make sure that they're fair, that they make sense, and that if there's a penalty that you can deal with it. So don't get into the bad contract. If you're into the bad contract, you're going to try to settle your way out of the bad contract. So you may want to go business to business to accomplish that, or you may want to have your attorney involved, or they may want to have their attorney involved, or they both may want to have attorneys involved, and you try to negotiate whatever it is to resolve to get out of that contract. And then if that falls short, then you always can file a lawsuit to try to get out of the bad contract.
When does a NDA come into place?
Well, NDAs are kind of an overused vehicle because there's truly few businesses out there that really have proprietary, um, totally subjective, creative information that can't be disclosed. For instance, if you just run like a janitorial business, okay, and your businesses, you go to places, clean them, and they pay you and whatever, okay? If your employee signs an NDA, there's really not a lot you're protecting there because it's a very open, known process of what you're doing, how you're running your business. There's no real secrets. If you have someone who is on the cutting edge of like a tech company who is actually designing like AI or designing systems or something like that, that's information that is protectable and that you want to protect. So that's where a non-disclosure agreement comes in. The non-disclosure agreement is essentially saying that you agree to protect the company or the partnership, whatever's intellectual property, and you're not going to disclose it to third party sources, and that it's information that only you hold. And even if you leave the company or whatever, you're not going to disclose it to others. And if you do, you'll be subject to a lawsuit.
Okay, so those are the consequences, huh?
Yes.
And what about the defamation? How can uh, sometimes there's a lot of things happening, like people attacking other individuals or their companies. So, what would you say, like someone a rule of thumb in regards to that? If some
Sure.
if someone is attacking you,
Sure. Just don't respond. Is my best advice to someone attacking you online or sending you threatening emails or whatever, because your response is going to be used against you. And if you want to say bad things about people, you want to uh, mix it up with someone or do whatever, I would say don't do it because it's going to come back to haunt you because there's a record of everything. There's a record of everything online. There's a record of voicemails. There's a record of emails. So whatever you say or do is going to be used against you. And if you try to retaliate or respond, it's also going to be used against you. And there's no real benefit to responding because nothing's going to happen in a response. The damage is already done. And that's why if you want to go out there and do something, you always file a lawsuit to seek to prevent someone from defaming you and then also to recoup whatever damages that you can prove, emphasis on prove, that the defamation cost you. Because just because I say I don't like you doesn't mean you were damaged in any way and you don't have any real recourse. But if I say, something and it costs you, and you can point to $1 million worth of business that you didn't get because of what I said, then you have damages that you're able to prove and you're able to go after in court.
Are there different forms of defamation?
Yes, there's libel and slander. Libel is written, slander is spoken. So libel is much easier to prove because it's in writing somewhere. Slander is I said something bad about you. Um, uh, and you have to have witnesses and credibility kind of issues regarding like spoken defamation. So it's a lot harder to prove uh, that than it is to prove libel.
In regards to product safety and product recall for the customer, what would you say, again, a rule of thumb for if that happens?
Well, if you're manufacturing a product or you're selling a product or you're distributing a product, whatever, and you become aware that there's a defect in it or a problem, obviously you want to get ahead of it as quickly as possible and put out a recall notice or notify the consumers of the fact that there's a problem with the whatever you want to call it, device, product, or whatever, and stay ahead of it by putting out a recall, putting out notices, making sure everyone's on notice and taking the situation very seriously. That way, you can eliminate the danger to the consumers and to your customers, and also the damage to you, your reputation, and your business.
When it comes to bankruptcy, what are some stuff that I know we have Chapter 11 and 7. Is there anything else that if someone is going to that, or maybe if they can avoid it, what should they think about?
Well, bankruptcy is I wouldn't say it's used in business often. I wouldn't say it's more than rarely, but it's less than often. And I think as time goes on, there's less stigma associated with the negatives of bankruptcy. And in the business context, some businesses just can't make it, have no money, and their liabilities outreach their assets, and they need to file bankruptcy. So I think obviously you want to consult with not just your regular attorney and not just your regular accountant, but you want to consult with the bankruptcy attorney about whether bankruptcy is right for you, because you may not need to go bankrupt. You may be able to get a line of credit somewhere that fixes everything. You may be able to do like what's called an assignment of benefit for creditors, where you just kind of give up the business and let the creditors have at it without even filing bankruptcy. Or you may find that you can move certain debts around and not have them be subject to the bankruptcy action. But it's you have to take it very seriously. It's very technical. There's a lot of compliance issues. You have to strictly comply with bankruptcy. There's a lot of requirements. Depending on what kind of bankruptcy you file, you may have a trustee that oversees the bankruptcy. And bankruptcy is not a get out of jail free card. You still have to deal with the debts. Certain debts are dischargeable, which means you don't necessarily have to pay them, but certain other debts are not and still need to be dealt with. So just bankruptcy is I don't want to say remedy of last resort, but that's definitely at the end of the line of things you can do to address situations before you get there.
In regards to estate planning, what should the entrepreneurs or business owners should think about?
Sure. So you want to, as I gave in my example earlier, you got to figure out a way to make sure that your business continues if something happens to you, or your business or your assets go to the people you want. So you just don't work with your business law attorney regarding that. You would bring in a estates and trust attorney to help you do your planning to come up with a comprehensive either trust or will that addresses everything you want regarding your business assets. And then you also want to build that into your governing documents of your business as well. And then it all is cohesive. So then that way, if something happens to you, your estate is ready to go and there's not going to be any issues.
What would you say? What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs in regards to everything we talked about, or about the legal system in business law?
Well, I would say obviously take your time. I know you're eager to get into business and you're eager to get out there and do what it is you want to do. But you have to make sure you do all the steps and you have to make sure you have your professionals on your side to help you during your process. So you always want to make sure you have your written business plan. You want to make sure you have your governing documents. You want to make sure you have your attorney, your accountant, your banker in place. And then you want to make sure that you comply with everything and understand what your responsibilities are as a business owner and take those responsibilities seriously and follow your governing documents, follow the law. And if you have questions, that's why you have professionals who you rely on to help you out. So then that way you can just focus on your business and not focus on the technical or compliance aspects because that's what the professionals do for you.
Where can people follow you?
You can find me on my website, which is fornarolegal.com. It's just my last name, fornarolegal.com. It's got links to all my social media, my contact information, videos, white papers, blogs, other podcasts. So it's all available on my website.